The transmission came through the secure galactic channel in the early hours, spreading like wildfire among humanity's leaders. On the desolate human colony of Vega 4, the Empire had committed an atrocity beyond any boundary of reason or morality. 800,000 children massacred in a calculated strike meant to send a message. The shock was palpable. Humanity's leaders, military strategists, diplomats, and civilian families alike reacted with grief and outrage, a potent combination that rippled through every level of society. Word of the massacre filtered through secure channels, leaving everyone from high-ranking officials to ordinary citizens in stunned silence as they absorbed the unthinkable loss. Commander Nadia Thorne, a decorated officer with a personal connection to Vega 4, received the news while stationed on the UES Resolute. She was a survivor of the initial colonization efforts on Vega 4 and had close ties to the families who had settled there. Her heart shattered when she heard the news. Rage simmered beneath her professional demeanor, a storm barely contained as she reviewed the details of the massacre. She read the report in silence, her face impassive but her mind racing through the implications. The Empire had struck at the most vulnerable, and in doing so, they had awakened a fury that would not rest. Throughout humanity's history, there had been many losses, but this was different. This was a brutal message, and every survivor, every leader, every soldier felt the weight of it. The massacre demanded justice. It demanded retribution, but most of all, it demanded that humanity make a stand. The Empire's leaders made no effort to hide their intentions. They addressed the galaxy with cold indifference, justifying the atrocity as a necessary act to curb humanity's influence. In a televised address broadcast to multiple systems, High Commander Lysandor of the Empire declared, "Humans have overstepped. Their expansion into our territories is a threat to the balance of power, and this action, though regrettable, was essential to maintain order." His words were calculated, lacking any semblance of empathy, framing the massacre as a simple act of control, an action taken to subjugate and silence humanity's rapid ascent. The recording circulated widely, and Lysandor's words struck a nerve, igniting anger across human colonies. For humanity, this was a war cry, a call to action. Commander Thorne met with the Allied Council, a coalition of humans and sympathetic alien representatives, to discuss an immediate response. The tension in the room was thick, emotions barely contained as each representative shared their sorrow and anger. The council discussed the massacre in hushed voices, shock still hanging heavy in the air. Thorne listened to representatives from colonies across the systems recounting their reactions. Some urged caution, fearful of retaliation. Others advocated for immediate action, demanding that the Empire pay for every life taken. Amid the debate, Thorne remained silent, gathering her thoughts, and when she finally spoke, her words were clear and unyielding. "We cannot let this go unanswered," she said, her voice cutting through the tension. "The Empire believes this action will weaken us, but they are wrong. We will honor our children by refusing to submit to tyranny. If they believe we are a threat, then let us show them just how true that is. We will seek allies. We will find every corner of this galaxy where their oppression has left scars, and we will build a force that the Empire will never forget." The words resonated through the room, a sense of purpose taking shape as she spoke. Representatives nodded, bolstered by her resolve. The Allied Council quickly agreed to a strategy, one that would ensure the memory of those lost was never forgotten, a unified front seeking retribution. They would not only strike back but make it clear that humanity, and all those who would join them, would never surrender to fear or control. Across the galaxy, humanity's military forces began preparing for war. Veterans and recruits alike lined up to defend their homeworlds and allies, each soldier carrying the memory of Vega 4 with them. Families who had never considered joining the fight enlisted, and underground resistance groups began to mobilize in preparation for what was coming. The massacre had united humanity like never before, and even those who had once doubted the need for military action were now fervent supporters of the cause. As humanity prepared, a new message from Commander Thorne spread through Allied channels, reaching every colony and settlement. "To the Empire, and to those who believe they can silence us, hear this. The lives you took will not be forgotten. You have crossed a line that cannot be uncrossed, and we will bring justice to every corner of your territories. Flee now, for we are coming, and we will not stop until every life lost is honored." The broadcast echoed through human colonies, stirring a mixture of grief and fierce determination. Citizens rallied around Thorne's words, and her warning was met with resounding support. Alien allies reached out, some cautiously, others with open support, each recognizing the shared pain of oppression and loss. The massacre was no longer an isolated tragedy. It had become a symbol, a catalyst for something much larger. The Empire's cruelty had sparked a fire that would soon blaze across the galaxy. Thorne's resolve only deepened with each passing day. Her memories of Vega 4, of laughter, of the bustling markets, of children playing under alien skies, were now tinged with the horror of what the Empire had done. She knew that this war would be long and brutal, that sacrifices would have to be made, but she also knew that justice for the children of Vega 4 would come. It had to. On the Resolute, Thorne gathered her team, briefing them on the next steps with unshakable determination. The mission was clear. They would strike back, not only for themselves but for every species in the galaxy who had suffered at the hands of the Empire. Humanity was no longer alone. They were part of something larger, a growing alliance bound by a shared purpose and an unyielding desire for justice. As the fleet prepared for launch, Thorne took a moment to reflect. The massacre had indeed changed everything, but the Empire had made a grave mistake if they thought humanity would crumble. They would rise stronger, more united than ever, and the Empire would soon understand the power of a people who had nothing left to lose. This was only the beginning. Humanity's message had been sent, and the galaxy would never be the same again. Commander Thorne's rallying message had spread far beyond humanity's colonies, igniting a spark that touched other civilizations long oppressed by the Empire. On distant worlds, the downtrodden and disenfranchised listened to her words with a mix of disbelief and hope. For centuries, the Empire had kept countless species underfoot, stifling their growth, suppressing their cultures, and seizing their resources. The massacre of the children on Vega 4 was just one more instance of their ruthless tyranny, but now the call for justice resonated with a force that could not be ignored. News of the massacre and Thorne's call to action reached the Falari, a peaceful nomadic species whose traditions had been nearly wiped out in the Empire's brutal expansion. Falari refugees, scattered across distant star systems, heard the broadcast and saw humanity as a symbol of resistance. It was said among the Falari that every lost culture left an echo in the galaxy, and now those echoes were uniting in a chorus of defiance. In the shadows of a forgotten asteroid belt, the Falari Council met in secret to discuss an unprecedented step, joining forces with humanity. The council was composed of elders, scholars, and warriors who had each lost loved ones to the Empire's unrelenting pursuit of control. They spoke in quiet, sorrowful tones, each word weighed with the pain of past sacrifices. The decision was not taken lightly, but after hours of deliberation, the council agreed. They would join the alliance and lend their resources, knowledge, and voices to the cause. They were not warriors by nature, but the memory of what had been stolen from them ignited a determination to see the Empire fall. Similar gatherings unfolded across the galaxy. On the desert world of Corin, the Iridani, a fierce warrior race known for their strength and resilience, held a meeting of their own. The Iridani had fought the Empire for years, resisting their rule through guerrilla tactics, sabotaging Empire supply lines, and raiding outposts. Yet, alone, they knew their defiance would ultimately end in their destruction. The massacre of Vega 4 and humanity's response gave them a rare glimpse of hope. United, they might stand a chance against the overwhelming power of the Empire. Iridani War Chief Nakar called together her generals, each a seasoned veteran scarred by years of battle against Empire forces. The humans have sent out a warning, a rallying cry, Nakar said, her voice fierce. They are willing to fight to the death for justice, and so are we. Let us join them and show the Empire that they cannot control the will of the free. Her words rang out like a battle cry, and her generals answered with raised fists. The Iridani were fighters to the core, and they would bring every ounce of their strength to this alliance. As alliances formed, word reached even the tightly guarded borders of the Thrall Dominion, a once thriving civilization whose leaders had been turned into puppets under the Empire's thumb. Thrall diplomats, monitored heavily by Empire overseers, whispered about the uprising, spreading the message through encrypted networks and quiet meetings in dimly lit corners of their government buildings. The Thralls, though under Empire rule, had long harbored resentment, and now, with the knowledge of an alliance forming, they saw a glimmer of a future free from oppression. Back aboard the UES Resolute, Commander Thorne watched the list of allied factions grow with every passing day. Communications poured in from leaders across the galaxy. Species she had once thought unreachable were now sending pledges of support, resources, and intelligence. What had started as humanity's fight was rapidly becoming a full-blown resistance movement. For Thorn, the support was a testament to the enduring strength of those who had suffered in silence, and as the alliance grew, so too did her resolve to bring justice to Vega 4. Thorn's first official council with the new allies took place in the deep reaches of space, on a neutral asteroid beyond the Empire's surveillance. Representatives from the Falari, Iridani, Thrall Dominion, and several other civilizations met in person, each one wary yet hopeful. They gathered in a hollowed-out asteroid, surrounded by stars, each leader's face etched with the weight of their people's suffering, and the quiet resolve to end it. Thorn stood before them, her uniform pristine, her gaze unwavering. "Thank you all for joining this alliance," she began, her voice steady. "We have all seen the Empire's cruelty. We've all lost too much, but together, we have a chance to stand against them. The massacre on Vega 4 was a tragedy, but it has also united us. They thought they could silence us with fear, but they were wrong." A murmur of agreement swept through the gathered representatives. One of the Falari elders, Kaisa, spoke up, her voice gentle but filled with determination. "The Empire took our worlds, erased our histories. We were forced into the shadows, but no longer. We will fight beside you, Commander Thorn, for Vega 4 and for every world the Empire has scarred." Nakar, the Iridani war chief, added, "My people have bled for years resisting them. Now with you, we will bring the fight to their doorstep. Let them see what they've unleashed." The strategy was set. The Alliance would strike at key Empire outposts, weakening their hold on the outer colonies, and freeing enslaved populations along the way. Intelligence reports from the Thralls provided critical insights into the Empire's defense networks, information that would be invaluable in orchestrating precise, coordinated strikes. Each leader agreed to supply resources, troops, and intel, pooling their strengths into a force the Empire would not anticipate. As the meeting concluded, Thorn looked around at the faces of her new allies. She saw courage, resilience, and a fierce loyalty to the cause. These were leaders who had been forged in the fires of adversity, and together, they would become an unstoppable force. The Empire had underestimated each of them individually, but together, they would prove to be a reckoning. Returning to the Resolute, Thorn felt a renewed sense of purpose. She gathered her crew and shared the news of the Alliance, her voice filled with hope and resolve. "We are not alone anymore," she announced. "Across the galaxy, others are joining us. The Empire may have the advantage of numbers, but we have something stronger: unity, purpose, and the memory of every life they have taken." The crew of the Resolute, a mix of humans and alien allies, erupted in cheers. Each person understood the risks, the challenges that lay ahead, but they also understood that they were now part of something larger than themselves. The Empire's grip on the galaxy was weakening, and the Allied forces were poised to strike at the heart of its tyranny. In the following days, the Alliance's preparations intensified. Fleets were organized, weapons were assembled, and covert messages were sent to sympathetic factions within Empire space. Underground resistance movements, inspired by Thorn's message, began to mobilize, creating chaos within the Empire's ranks as they prepared for the coming assault. Commander Thorn and her allies knew that the path ahead would be perilous. The Empire's response would be swift and brutal, but they were ready. The Allied forces had a singular purpose: to bring justice to those who had suffered and to make the galaxy a place where such atrocities would never happen again. As she looked out at the stars from the Resolute's command deck, Thorn felt a sense of calm resolve. The Alliance was growing, a powerful tide that could not be turned back. The Empire had taken everything from her people, but now they would take the fight to the Empire. This was the beginning of a war for freedom, for justice, and for the right of every species to live without fear. The galaxy had been silent under the Empire's rule for too long. Now, with the Alliance united, that silence was over. The Alliance had grown strong, gathering courage and forces from across the galaxy, but they all knew the Empire would not let this insurrection go unanswered. Back on the Empire's capital world, in a towering citadel of steel and glass that loomed over the sprawling metropolis below, Supreme Warden Rulian, a figure known for his ruthless discipline and unwavering loyalty to the Empire, prepared his forces to retaliate. Rulian's gaze was steely as he reviewed the intelligence reports, his sharp, angular features set in a grim expression. "The humans and their allies have become an infection," Rulian snarled to his command council. "They spread hope where there should be none. This insurrection must be crushed swiftly and with precision." The Empire's High Council, a gathering of the most influential figures across their territories, echoed his sentiment. They feared the uprising might encourage more resistance. something they could not afford. Rulian outlined his plan to strike at the heart of the Allied forces, destabilizing them before they could gain further ground. His plan was ruthless: wipe out any and all potential allies to show that any resistance to the Empire would only lead to ruin. Within hours, fleets were dispatched to target known Allied worlds, outposts, and the home bases of those who had dared to stand with humanity. The first target was the Iridani stronghold on Corin. Corin had been a bastion of defiance against the Empire for years, but with the Alliance's formation, it had become a critical staging ground for the resistance. The Empire knew that a strike against Corin would send a brutal message to the rest of the galaxy. On board the Iridani command ship, Vanguard, War Chief Nakar stood at the bridge, watching the stars. Her crew monitored the systems, watching for any sign of approaching threats. Although they had expected retaliation, nothing could have prepared them for the sheer scale of the Empire's response. A massive fleet appeared on the scanners, their numbers far outstripping anything Nakar's forces could muster. "Commander, incoming transmission," one of the bridge officers announced. Nakar braced herself as the screen flickered to life, revealing Supreme Warden Rulian's face. His expression was as cold as the void of space. "Nakar of Corin," he said, his voice devoid of emotion. "You stand accused of high treason against the Empire. By order of the Supreme Council, your world will be purged. Surrender, and we may offer leniency to your people." Nakar's eyes narrowed, her expression a mask of defiance. "You bring threats to the wrong people, Rulian. We will never bow to your empire. For every life you take, 10 more will rise against you." "Very well," Rulian replied, his tone flat. "Then let your people's destruction be a lesson to the galaxy." With a simple command, Rulian ordered his fleet to advance. The Empire's ships unleashed a torrent of firepower upon the Iridani defenses, lighting up the skies of Corin with explosions. The Iridani, fierce warriors to the last, fought back with all they had, but their defenses were no match for the overwhelming force the Empire had brought. Corin's cities, its fortresses, and even its people were devastated under the Empire's relentless assault. The message was clear: any world that stood with humanity would pay the ultimate price. Back aboard the UES Resolute, Commander Thorn and her team received word of the massacre on Corin. Thorn's heart sank as she watched the footage transmitted from the remnants of the Iridani fleet, scenes of destruction and ruin, images of brave warriors who had fought to the end. Nakar's final transmission showed her face, bloodied but defiant, shouting her last battle cry as her command ship went down in flames. Thorn clenched her fists, her jaw tight with grief and anger. Corin had been a vital ally, and Nakar a trusted friend. The loss was a blow, both to the Alliance's morale and their strategy. But it was more than that. It was a horrifying reminder of the lengths to which the Empire would go to maintain control. The news of Corin's fall spread quickly across the Alliance, casting a dark shadow over their newfound hope. Across the galaxy, whispers of fear mingled with cries for vengeance. Thorn knew that the Empire's ruthless strike had shaken the Alliance's resolve, but she also knew that they could not afford to give in to despair. Standing before the Allied Council, Thorn addressed the leaders gathered from across the stars. Her voice was steady, but her eyes betrayed the depth of her anger. "The Empire thinks they can break us with fear and destruction. They think they can extinguish the light of every world that dares to defy them. But Corin's sacrifice will not be in vain. Nakar and her people fought for freedom, and it is up to us to honor their legacy by pressing on, by fighting harder." Kaisa, the Falari elder, raised her voice in agreement. "The Empire has cast darkness over our worlds for too long. Let Corin's light be the beacon that guides us. We must stand together now, stronger than ever." The council, though shaken, rallied around Thorn's words. Corin's loss became a rallying cry, a symbol of the Empire's cruelty and the need for liberation. Across Allied worlds, citizens prepared for the inevitable clashes to come. Factories increased production, engineers worked around the clock to improve defenses, and resistance fighters trained with renewed determination. The Alliance would not cower. They would strike back, harder and faster. Even as they mourned Corin, Thorn and her allies began to reevaluate their strategy. The Empire had shown its strength, but in doing so, they had also revealed their greatest weakness, their dependence on fear. Thorn knew they could use this to their advantage. By targeting strategic Empire facilities and striking where they least expected, they could spread confusion and force the Empire to stretch its resources. The first target was an Empire weapons depot located on an uninhabited moon near the galactic core. It was one of the Empire's main supply lines for weapons, providing arms to troops stationed throughout their territory. A small elite team led by Thorn herself was dispatched to infiltrate and sabotage the facility. This mission would be their first strike in the wake of Corin's fall, a way to show the galaxy that the Alliance was not broken. Approaching the depot under the cover of darkness, Thorn and her team donned cloaking gear and moved with practiced stealth. They slipped past Empire patrols, hacking into security systems and disabling cameras. Once inside, they planted charges at critical points throughout the depot, ensuring that when the explosives detonated, the entire facility would be crippled. With minutes to spare, Thorn and her team exfiltrated the depot, blending into the shadows as they made their escape. Moments later, a series of explosions ripped through the facility, illuminating the night sky with a fiery glow. Empire supply lines would be severely disrupted, forcing them to regroup and slowing their ability to launch further assaults. Word of the successful strike spread rapidly across the Alliance, rekindling hope and determination among its members. Corin's loss was a wound that would not easily heal, but the Alliance had shown that they would not falter. For every world that fell, they would strike back with renewed fury, chipping away at the Empire's seemingly unbreakable facade. Supreme Warden Rulian received word of the depot's destruction with a look of grim satisfaction. He had expected retaliation, but he also knew that every act of defiance gave the Empire more reason to crush the Alliance. "They want to resist," he muttered, his voice dripping with disdain. "Then we will give them reason to fear." The Empire's forces redoubled their efforts, deploying more troops and tightening their grip on allied worlds. But for every inch the Empire gained, the Alliance found ways to push back, to resist, to survive. The galactic tides were shifting, and though the path ahead was fraught with loss and sacrifice, the Alliance knew that freedom was worth every battle, every life lost. In the quiet of her quarters, Thorn reflected on the events that had unfolded. The Empire had struck with a force designed to break them, but in doing so, they had only strengthened the Alliance's resolve. For every sacrifice made, for every world that burned, there was a growing promise, a promise that one day, the Empire would pay for every atrocity, every life taken. Corin's fall had not broken them. It had forged them into something stronger, and with that strength, they would see this fight through to the end. The Empire had ignited a fire they could never hope to control, and it was only a matter of time before that fire would consume them whole. The Alliance's counterattacks had given them a spark of hope, but they knew it was only a small victory in a war against a colossus. Supreme Warden Rulian and the Empire's command structure responded to each strike with ruthless precision, their grip tightening on every world that dared to show defiance. Stories of Corin's fall and the fate of its people had circulated widely, inspiring both fear and rebellion across the stars. Thorn and the Alliance leaders knew they had to turn that fear into strength, that rebellion into action. Back on the Resolute, Thorn and the other leaders of the Alliance held a critical strategy meeting. The stakes were higher than ever, and every move had to count. Representatives from newly allied factions joined the discussion, their holograms flickering across the Resolute's command deck. Leaders from Iridani, Falari, and others who had seen the Empire's cruelty firsthand voiced their concerns, each one carrying the weight of their people's struggles. Kaisa, the Falari elder, stood tall, her bioluminescent skin glowing softly as she spoke. "The Empire has sown fear for centuries, keeping us fractured and isolated. But now, with each act of defiance, we are showing them that their reign will not last forever. Corin's fall may have been a tragedy, but it has also become a rallying cry." Thorn nodded, sensing the truth in Kaisa's words. "They want us to believe we are weak, that we are powerless against their might. But the Empire has underestimated us. We may be small, but we are relentless, and we have something they lack: unity born of necessity, resilience born of survival." The Alliance leaders agreed to launch a coordinated series of strikes across the galaxy. Rather than engage in direct large-scale battles, they would focus on hitting the Empire's supply lines, targeting key depots, fuel stations, and communications hubs. The goal was simple, but bold: to weaken the Empire's infrastructure, forcing them to spread their resources thinner, and exposing the cracks in their supposedly unassailable power. The first mission targeted a high-security outpost known as Haven 7, where the Empire stored advanced weaponry and experimental technologies. Haven 7 was heavily fortified, but if they could take it down, it would deliver a significant blow to the Empire's tactical advantage. Thorn volunteered to lead the mission, knowing that a successful assault on Haven 7 would ignite a new wave of hope across the Alliance. As they prepared for the assault, Thorn gathered her team for a final briefing. scanning. She stood before a holographic map of the facility, highlighting key entry points and high-value targets within the base. Her tone was calm and steady, though every word carried a sense of urgency. "Our objective is clear," she began. "Once inside, we split into 3 teams. Team Alpha will disable the outpost's defenses. Team Bravo will secure the weapon storage bays, and Team Delta will plant charges at critical infrastructure points. We'll be in and out before they realize what hit them." Lieutenant Reese, her second-in-command, nodded with resolve. "And if things go south, we adapt," Thorne replied firmly. "Stay focused, and remember, this mission isn't just about Haven 7. It's about sending a message. The Empire's stronghold may be vast, but it is not impenetrable." Under the cover of darkness, Thorne and her team approached Haven 7 in modified transport ships equipped with cloaking technology. They landed just beyond the outpost's perimeter, slipping past automated defenses and patrolling guards. Moving as one, the team advanced toward the facility, every step practiced and deliberate. Once inside, Team Alpha quickly took down the security system, allowing the other teams to enter undetected. Team Bravo, led by Reese, moved swiftly through the maze-like corridors, heading for the storage bays where the Empire kept its most devastating weapons. Meanwhile, Thorne's Team Delta carefully planted charges on structural supports and generators, ensuring that the facility would be left in ruins. But as they worked, an alarm suddenly blared through the base. A patrol had spotted a stray charge, and now the Empire's troops were on high alert. Thorne cursed under her breath, signaling her team to prepare for combat. The quiet infiltration had turned into a full-on assault, and they had to move fast. Reese's voice crackled over the comm. "Commander, we've encountered heavy resistance near the storage bays. They're bringing in reinforcements. Hold them off as long as you can," Thorne replied, her voice steady. "Team Alpha, we need that exit route secured. Everyone else prepare for extraction." The next few minutes were a blur of gunfire, explosions, and hurried commands as the teams fought their way through the facility. The Empire's troops were well-trained and relentless, but the Alliance forces had the advantage of speed and precision. They moved with a fierce determination, knowing that the success of their mission depended on their ability to hold their ground against impossible odds. In the chaos, Thorne found herself face-to-face with an Empire officer, a towering figure clad in dark armor with the insignia of a high-ranking soldier. His face was cold and expressionless as he raised his weapon, but Thorne was faster, dodging his attack and striking back with a calculated force. The officer staggered, his confidence faltering as he realized that the Alliance was not the weak, scattered force the Empire had painted them to be. "Your Empire's time is running out," Thorne said, her voice low but filled with conviction. "You may have the numbers, but we have the will, and that's something you'll never break." With a final blow, she took down the officer, reclaiming control of the area just as her team signaled that the charges were in place. They had completed their mission, and now it was time to get out. As the Alliance forces retreated, the charges detonated, sending shockwaves through the facility. Haven 7 erupted in flames, a beacon of resistance that would be seen across the Empire's vast territories. Back on the Resolute, Thorne watched the explosion on her screen, feeling a deep sense of satisfaction. Haven 7 was no more, and the Empire had suffered a significant setback. But more than that, they had shown the galaxy that the Alliance was growing stronger, that each victory fueled the next. News of Haven 7's destruction spread rapidly, reaching even the farthest corners of the Empire's domain. On planets once subdued by fear, whispers of rebellion grew louder, citizens emboldened by the Alliance's bravery. For every world that had suffered under the Empire's rule, Haven 7's fall was a sign that freedom was within reach. Supreme Warden Rulian, however, was not one to let such a defeat go unanswered. Seated in the Empire's Grand Council chamber, he reviewed the reports with a simmering rage. The Alliance had struck at one of their most vital outposts, and they had succeeded. The Warden's advisors urged him to tighten his grip, to deploy more forces, to crush the Alliance once and for all. "They think they are safe," Rulian muttered to himself, his voice dripping with disdain. "They believe that their unity will protect them, but they are only delaying the inevitable." Rulian dispatched more fleets to patrol Alliance territories, each one tasked with quashing any sign of resistance. He would make an example of those who dared to stand with humanity, proving that no force in the galaxy could withstand the Empire's might. But Thorne knew the Alliance had gained something far more valuable than a victory. They had gained momentum. The Alliance's members continued to grow, with more worlds pledging support, more species willing to risk everything for the chance to end the Empire's tyranny. Across the galaxy, Preparations were underway for a larger offensive, one that would take the fight directly to the Empire's heart. Thorn, standing before the growing fleet of Alliance ships, felt a sense of hope she hadn't felt since the war began. For every battle they fought, for every ally they gained, they inched closer to a future free from the Empire's oppression. The galaxy was beginning to unite, and soon even the mighty Empire would feel the weight of their collective resolve. In the distance, the stars shimmered, a promise of the challenges yet to come, and Thorn knew that the Alliance was ready. They had risen from the ashes, stronger and more determined than ever. The Empire's days of unchecked power were numbered, and the Alliance would make sure of it. The Alliance had reached a tipping point. The destruction of Haven 7 had ignited a rebellion that was now too vast for the Empire to ignore. All across the galaxy, from the dense trade routes to the remote outer colonies, resistance movements were growing in strength, fueled by the hope that humanity and its allies had kindled. With each victory, the Alliance drew closer to the Empire's core, ready to strike at the very heart of its power. This time, their target was one of the Empire's largest military command stations, Fortress Galador. Fortress Galador was an imposing structure, built into the surface of a desolate moon orbiting a gas giant. It was one of the most fortified locations in the Empire, known for its impenetrable defense systems and housing key military leaders. Galador was more than just a base. It was a symbol of the Empire's unyielding control over its territories. If the Alliance could take down Galador, it would send shockwaves across the Empire, proving that even its most secure strongholds were vulnerable. As the Alliance leaders prepared for the assault, Thorn stood before the assembly, addressing the gathered commanders and strategists. The atmosphere was electric, each person fully aware of the risks and the impact of their mission. Taking Galador would be their boldest move yet, and Thorn knew that failure was not an option. "We have all lost something to the Empire," Thorn began, her voice steady and firm. "But we have also gained something. A bond, a shared purpose that is stronger than anything they can throw at us. Galador represents everything we're fighting against. Their arrogance, their belief that they can control the galaxy without consequence. Today, we show them they're wrong." The plan was intricate, a multi-pronged assault that would require precision and cooperation from every Alliance faction. The mission was divided into 3 stages. The first team, led by Commander Zarin of the Iridani, would infiltrate the station's external defenses. Their cloaked ships would bypass the early warning systems, allowing them to plant charges on the satellite defense grid that surrounded the fortress. The second team, led by Thorn herself, would penetrate the inner fortress and secure control of the main command center, where they would override the security systems and disable internal defenses. The final team, consisting of specialized fighters from the Grelin, would provide cover for their exit, taking on the waves of Empire reinforcements that were sure to arrive. The Alliance fleet gathered in orbit around a nearby asteroid belt, hidden from Galador's scanners. Each ship was outfitted with stealth technology, a blend of human ingenuity and Nexari science, allowing them to move undetected. The tension was palpable as Thorn's voice crackled over the comms, giving the final order. "All teams, commence Operation Dawnstrike. We are going to make history today." The first phase of the mission went smoothly. Zarin's team moved like shadows through the outer defenses, planting charges on the satellite grid with practiced efficiency. As the charges detonated in a brilliant burst of light, the defensive satellites went dark, leaving a crucial gap in the Empire's shield around Galador. The way was clear for the main assault. Thorn's team approached the fortress in cloaked shuttles, slipping through the chaos undetected. Once inside, they moved swiftly through the corridors, disabling security systems and taking out guards with silent precision. The fortress's design was a maze of narrow halls and fortified chambers, but Thorn's team navigated it with the confidence of seasoned warriors. The Empire's guards, though numerous, were unprepared for the level of coordination and sheer determination that the Alliance forces displayed. Reaching the command center, Thorn and her team encountered heavy resistance. Empire soldiers, armed with advanced energy weapons and armored suits, stood in their way, but the Alliance soldiers fought back with grit and ingenuity. The clash was intense, a flurry of laser fire and shouts as Thorn directed her team, each movement calculated to push them closer to their goal. One by one, the Empire soldiers fell, and the Alliance pushed forward. As they breached the command center, Thorn's gaze locked onto the command console. She signaled to her technician, who immediately began bypassing the control systems. Alarms blared, and Thorn knew they had little time before the Empire's reinforcements arrived. "Hold this position," she ordered, as her team formed a defensive line around the room. They watched the doorways, weapons at the ready, as the technician worked frantically to complete the override. The sound of footsteps and shouts grew louder, echoing through the corridors. Empire soldiers were closing in, their reinforcements prepared to retake the command center. Just as the technician completed the override, the doors burst open, and Empire troops flooded into the room. Thorn's team opened fire, each soldier fighting with a fierce determination. The battle was close quarters and brutal, the air thick with the smell of scorched metal and the echoes of gunfire. Thorn fought alongside her team, her every movement fueled by the memories of the lives lost and the hope that their mission would succeed. In the midst of the chaos, a massive Empire officer in dark armor entered the room, his presence commanding the attention of everyone around him. His eyes locked onto Thorn, and for a brief moment, they stared each other down, each one sizing up the other. Then, with a roar, the officer charged, and Thorn met him head-on, their clash reverberating through the command center. The battle between Thorn and the Empire officer was fierce, a test of strength and will. He fought with a cold mechanical precision, each strike calculated to overpower her. But Thorn's determination was unbreakable, her movements swift and relentless. With a final, powerful strike, she managed to bring him down, his armor clattering as he fell to the ground. The command center secured, Thorn gave the signal to initiate the final phase. The security systems shut down, leaving Galador vulnerable. Alarms blared as the Empire realized the full extent of the breach, but it was too late. The Alliance forces flooded into the fortress, dismantling the remaining defenses and securing key areas. Outside, the Grellan fighters provided cover, their ships weaving through the Empire reinforcements with skill and precision. The Empire's response was fierce, but the Alliance held their ground, protecting the retreating forces as the operation came to a close. As Thorn's team made their way back to the extraction point, she took a moment to look back at the fortress. Galador was crumbling, flames and smoke rising from its once impenetrable walls. The Empire's symbol of power lay in ruins, a testament to the Alliance's strength and resilience. Back aboard the Resolute, Thorn stood on the bridge, watching the fortress burn through the viewport. The entire Alliance fleet erupted in cheers, their victory echoing across the stars. They had struck a blow that would resonate throughout the Empire, one that would inspire worlds across the galaxy to rise up against their oppressors. Supreme Warden Rulian's voice came through the Imperial channels, his tone cold and dripping with fury. You may have won this battle, but the Empire's resolve is unshaken. We will hunt down every last one of you and crush this alliance. You cannot withstand our wrath. Thorn smirked, her voice calm as she responded. You've underestimated us for the last time, Rulian. We are done cowering. The galaxy will no longer live in fear of the Empire. This is only the beginning. With that, she cut the channel, her heart swelling with pride and determination. Galador was just one victory, but it was a symbol of what they could accomplish together. The Alliance had proven that even the Empire's strongest walls could be brought down, and there was no turning back. The road ahead was still fraught with danger, and the Empire would come back with a vengeance. But for the first time, the galaxy saw a real chance for freedom, a light at the end of a dark and oppressive tunnel. Thorn and her allies were ready for the battles that lay ahead, knowing that each victory brought them one step closer to a future free from the Empire's tyranny. As the news of Galador's fall spread, the galaxy held its breath. For centuries, the Empire had ruled unchallenged, its reach extending to every corner of the known universe. But now, word traveled faster than light, sparking a flame in the hearts of countless oppressed species. From the densely populated core worlds to the distant outposts on the fringes of space, rebellion surged, fueled by the audacity of those who had finally stood against the Empire and won. On the bridge of the Resolute, Thorn and her team watched as holographic displays illuminated with live feeds from worlds across the galaxy. Citizens were rising up, inspired by the Alliance's victory at Galador, casting off their shackles and dismantling the Empire's oppressive structures. The Empire's forces were stretched thin, unable to maintain their iron grip on a populace determined to break free. But even as rebellion spread, Thorn and her allies knew the fight was far from over. Supreme Warden Rulian was consolidating his remaining forces, determined to make a final stand and snuff out the Alliance once and for all. Intelligence reports indicated that he was gathering his fleet in the Darak system, a heavily fortified sector where the Empire still maintained full control. Darak was the Empire's last stronghold, and if the Alliance could take it down, they would deal a blow from which the Empire might never recover. Thorn convened with the Alliance Council, a gathering of leaders from the Grellan, Sylvari, Nexari, and countless other factions who had joined their cause. The holographic faces of her allies flickered around her, each leader resolute in their commitment to the final assault. "This is it," Thorn began, her voice steady. "Darak represents the last of the Empire's strongholds. If we can take it, we'll shatter the Empire's military infrastructure and send a clear message. They are no longer invincible." Elisara, the Sylvari leader, nodded, her bioluminescent tendrils glowing softly. "The people are ready, Thorn. The Alliance is stronger than ever, but we must be prepared for the cost. Rulian won't go down without a fight." "Understood," Thorn replied. "This battle won't be like Galador. The Empire knows what we're capable of now. They'll throw everything they have at us, but this time, we're ready." The Alliance forces prepared for the final assault. Ships from every faction converged on the outskirts of the Darak system, their hulls reflecting the determination of the beings who had come together to end the Empire's tyranny once and for all. The fleet stretched as far as the eye could see, a united armada of species who had once been strangers, now bound by a shared purpose. As they approached Darak, the fleet's communications channels buzzed with anticipation. Thorn's face appeared on every ship's main screen, her voice carrying through the silence. "Today, we fight for more than just survival. We fight for every life that has been taken, every world that has been oppressed, every child who deserves a future free from fear. The Empire took from us, again and again, without mercy. But today, we take back what is ours, together." With a single command, the Alliance fleet surged forward, engines blazing as they entered Darak's gravity well. The Empire's defenses activated instantly, and the sky erupted in explosions as anti-ship cannons and missile batteries fired into the approaching ships. Empire fighters launched from hidden hangars on the planet's surface, swarming the Alliance fleet in an attempt to break their formation. The Alliance's ships moved with precision, formations honed from months of fighting together. Grellan fighter squads wove through the Empire's lines, engaging enemy ships with surgical strikes. Sylvari bioships, with their organic armor, absorbed hits that would have destroyed other vessels, pushing forward even as energy weapons scorched their hulls. Human and Nexari ships provided covering fire, their advanced shielding systems deflecting the Empire's barrage. As the fleet pushed deeper into the heart of the Empire's defenses, Thorn led a team of commandos onto the surface of Darak to disable the planetary defense grid. Their shuttle dodged laser fire and anti-aircraft missiles, the roar of the battle above echoing in their ears as they descended. Thorn's heart pounded as the shuttle touched down, and her team moved swiftly, advancing through Darak's fortified corridors with the determination of warriors who knew this was their last chance. Inside the defense complex, Empire soldiers attempted to hold the line, but Thorn's team cut through their ranks with a brutal efficiency. The air crackled with energy blasts, and the metallic scent of scorched equipment filled the hallways as the team fought their way to the control room. At the command console, Thorn's technician worked quickly, fingers flying over the interface as he bypassed layers of Empire security. Seconds stretched into eternity as the technician's face glistened with sweat, finally inputting the last command. The defense grid powered down, and the Empire's ground defenses fell silent, leaving Darak vulnerable. Back in orbit, the Alliance fleet surged forward, seizing the opportunity to push past the Empire's remaining forces. Supreme Warden Rulian's flagship, an imposing dreadnought bristling with weaponry, became the focal point of the Alliance's assault. Rulian's voice thundered across the Empire's channels, rallying his troops with promises of vengeance and glory. But the Alliance pressed on, their resolve unshaken. Thorn's team rejoined the fleet, her shuttle racing toward Rulian's dreadnought. As they prepared for the final confrontation, the dreadnought loomed before them, its hull dark and foreboding, a symbol of the Empire's power that had loomed over the galaxy for far too long. The Alliance's ships surrounded Rulian's dreadnought, pounding its shields with relentless fire. With each strike, cracks appeared in the once impenetrable defenses, and as the shields finally collapsed, the fleet focused their weapons on the dreadnought's vulnerable hull. Thorn and her team breached the dreadnought's interior, navigating the winding corridors toward Rulian's command center. Empire soldiers fell before them, each step bringing them closer to the end of a journey that had begun with unimaginable loss. At last, they entered the command center, where Rulian awaited, his eyes filled with a mixture of hatred and desperation. "You've come far, for such fragile beings," Rulian sneered, his voice cold and disdainful. "But your defiance ends here." Thorn stepped forward, her gaze unwavering. "Your empire has terrorized the galaxy for long enough. This is where it ends, Rulian. You're finished." Rulian's expression twisted with fury, and he lunged, but Thorn was ready. The fight was swift and fierce, each blow a reflection of the unyielding determination of a warrior who had lost everything but had found a new purpose. With a final, decisive strike, Thorn brought Rulian down, his figure crumpling to the floor in defeat. The Alliance forces cheered as word spread that Rulian was defeated, the news reverberating across the galaxy. Darak had fallen, and with it the last stronghold of the Empire. The galaxy erupted in celebration, a wave of relief and hope sweeping through every species that had suffered under the Empire's reign. As the Alliance leaders gathered to commemorate their victory, Thorn looked out at the gathered assembly, her heart filled with both pride and humility. She knew that the fight had come at a great cost, that countless lives had been lost, but their sacrifice had not been in vain. Together, they had done the impossible. They had freed the galaxy from a tyranny that had seemed unbreakable. "We are free," Thorn spoke, her voice carrying across the assembly. "But freedom is not the end. It is the beginning. We must build a future where no empire, no force can threaten our unity, our peace. Let our alliance be a beacon, a promise that the galaxy will never again bow to oppression." Cheers erupted as the Alliance's banner was raised, a symbol of unity and resilience that would be remembered for generations. And as Thorn looked out at the stars, she felt a sense of peace. The galaxy, vast and endless, was finally free, and humanity's legacy would be one of courage, sacrifice, and an unwavering fight for justice. The Empire had fallen, and the galaxy would never forget.